菲菲教授，非常感谢，也很荣幸您能够接受我的对话，希望能够通过这次交流，能够让我们的读者和用户更多的了解到您，还有现在关于 AI 的一些思考。您的那本书《我看见的世界》，我印象非常深刻。我第一次看那本书的时候，我都哭了好几次，很打动人。我还让我女儿也看了，因为我女儿也是留学，很能共情。第一个问题啊，就想问问您，您怎么来看待对于一个青少年怎么去观察世界的一些建议和视角吧？因为这个不仅是对留学生，其实对中国的这一代青少年成长，我觉得都是非常有帮助的。
谢谢你喜欢我的书里，谢谢你女儿也读了。其实说实话，我觉得现在的青少年真的头脑就是真的很了不起。我自己不管从我的学生还是共同创业的同事，都是很年轻的。我有时候就觉得我跟他们学的比他们向我学的多多了，所以我也不太好意思说我有什么要跟青少年讲的这个，那就可以共同的这个分享一下吧。我觉得还是像书名的这个副标题的第一个字，我觉得好奇心真的是一切的开始，尤其是人之初这种好奇心，作为一个小孩子，毕竟那个时候世界还是很单纯，带着很多这个好奇来认识世界。写这本书的时候，我自己最大的感受也是一种梳理吧，对我自己的科学之路是一种梳理。我觉得我自己运气很好，不管是因为家庭的原因，还是因为我的求学之路，我这份好奇心被保护下来了。回过头去看，其实有很多人在呵护我的好奇心，对我来说是一份幸运。然后我也希望把这份幸运和这种认知分享给青少年们，那就是人生很多时候是从好奇心开始的。不要丢掉这份好奇心，它真的可以让你烧起一把火，在你的心灵里边，对这个世界的好奇也好，对你梦想的追逐也好，这个火可以陪伴你很长时间，带你做很多很多的事情。
那怎么保持这样的一个好奇心呢？其实我对您在书里面提到的一些您观察这个世界，包括您观察周边人的一些视角，我都觉得很有意思啊。
我觉得可能还是有很多不同的因素吧。一个小孩子不可能去刻意的去保持甚至发掘好奇心，因为我觉得好奇心是与生俱来的。但是就像我说的一下，我自己觉得我很幸运，就是说我自己可能基因里边带着强烈的好奇心，但是回过头看我走过的路，也有很多人呵护了我的好奇心。当我身边有那么多志同道合、保持好奇心的人的时候，也更容易自己也保持。所以确实有很多因素。我觉得很多人说别人的成功之路不能复制，某种程度上是的，每一个人都很独特。但是呢，我也同时相信有些东西是有共性的，孩子的好奇心是有共性的，很多的父母、很多的老师愿意去呵护孩子的好奇心也是有共性的。
你很谦虚啊，但是可能这份幸运背后，就像您说的，有您自己的一些意识啊，然后包括您身边的人，包括您的父母、老师对您这份好奇心的这个保护，其实也是很重要的。这个给我们成人也是很有启发的呀。那对于我们成人来说，怎么去保护一个孩子的这个好奇心，我们能做些什么呢？
这问题问得很好，你也是妈妈，我也是妈妈，我也当了那么多年的老师。其实好奇心的本质是什么？好奇心的本质带着一种快乐，就它不是一个功利性的，它不是说因为我好奇了，我就会获取更多的知识，成绩就会更好，或者成果就会更大，所以我必须好奇。因为我觉得这样的好奇，它其实是肤浅的一种好奇，它带着更多功利性。真正的好奇心是快乐的，科研里的一个发现，或者甚至是一个不重要的事情，但是当它满足了你的真诚的好奇心的时候，你是快乐的。那我觉得作为父母，作为老师，你得共情体会到这种快乐，就是孩子的好奇心，他的真诚来自于他的快乐。如果你跟这个快乐没有共情的话，你很难去欣赏这份好奇心。我觉得发自内心的去呵护这种快乐，对你自己也是一种快乐啊。就是当你看着孩子，因为不管是好奇心的满足，还是好奇心的 motivation，让孩子快乐的时候，你其实是能感受到这个快乐的。我觉得大人、成人很多时候感受不到这种快乐，是因为成人带着太多的滤镜吧，生活的滤镜、功利心的滤镜、这种压力的滤镜和自己认知的滤镜，这些滤镜让成年人不容易感受到共情这个快乐，不容易共情这份好奇心。 所以我们往往就也许都不在自己的意识的状态下，就没有保护好孩子们的好奇心。说实话，人生成长的过程、变老的过程，很多事情会觉得没有年轻时候好，但是好奇心的快乐永远不会变。所以说，我觉得成年人自己应该就
也有快乐的能力啊。
对呀，就是应该 appreciate 自己的好奇心，因为这是一个快乐的源泉。至少我自己觉得，跟年轻人在一起，跟他们学习，看到自己这么多不懂的，或者有时候自己去学一个东西，就是很快乐吧。它就是一种本能。
这个很重要，就是因为我们大人有时候自己容易失去快乐的能力，然后我们反倒去把这种压力带给孩子，所以可能我们自己先快乐，先学会快乐，
自己先 appreciate 自己的好奇心。
对对对，那您现在有什么事情会让你感到快乐呢？
我觉得现在创造特别让我感到快乐，就是 create， 不管是 create 技术、科技，create 一个团队去攻坚很难的问题，或者是 create 一个 idea， 或者是去学到一些 idea， 这些都让我特别特别快乐。所以我这么多年喜欢在科研前线做事情，喜欢和学生们一起做事情，包括喜欢和年轻人一起创业，这些都让我特别特别快乐。
但是我们也会看到，就是快乐的同时，也会经历很多的困惑哈。在面对困惑的时候的怎么解决，或者说怎么去面对自己的困惑，或者是怀疑自己的时候，从物理学转向 AI 的时候，其实你也有过很长一段时间的叫彷徨吧，就是你到底是选择实用还是选择这个纯粹的科学？你怎么度过那段时期的呢？
我其实一直都很惶恐啊，因为我觉得当一个人在探索的过程，不管是科研的探索还是人生的探索，你永远会处于惶恐的阶段。如果不惶恐的话，就太舒服了，就说明没有去挑战自己。然后我又是一个喜欢挑战自己的人，所以搞得我觉得我一辈子都在惶恐。既然一辈子都在惶恐的话，那就学会怎么接受这个惶恐，学会怎么和惶恐打交道了。那就是说，它就是一部分了。就是说，你不可能完全不惶恐。我觉得我现在每天都在惶恐，但是呢，除了惶恐，还有很多其他的。第一就是说，确实太惶恐了也没用啊，这个还是得一步一步的做事情。我觉得，尤其是做过很艰难的移民或者是什么的，你会发现那么多未知。你能做的就是把今天做好。所以我前段时间在一个硅谷这边那个 Y Combinator 跟一大群年轻的创业者聊天的时候，我就跟他们说，我说就 gradient descent， 这是一个机器学习的概念，这就是一个很重要的一个 deal with 你这个惶恐的一个办法。那另外一个就是带着一些信念了，你要有勇气，有一些信念，也要有一定的自信。这种信念有可能，即使是有勇气，即使是有自信，即使是你做了很久很久，你还是会输。但是那就输就输呗，至少你自己 try 过了，那输就输呗，这个怕啥？
哎，你刚才说你现在每天也都很惶恐，你现在最惶恐什么？
哎呦，我惶恐太多的事情了。我现在创业嘛，然后我惶恐我们的模型没有做好，我惶恐我们的产品还没有找到定位。我最大的惶恐是这么优秀的一群小朋友们能跟我一起做，我不能辜负这群小朋友，这是我最大最大的惶恐。我可能也不能辜负投资人，但是我觉得不辜负小朋友对我来说，比不辜负投资人还惶恐。我的每一个同事，我都叫他们小朋友，因为我觉得他们好年轻、好优秀，在我的心里，就是这些小朋友都是我的老师。但是又都是信任我的人，所以我就特别在意，我要很努力，不辜负他们。
我看有一些您的学生也在创业啊，然后包括有一些机器人的项目也在做。你怎么看待你的学生去创业这件事情？
我非常非常支持他们，我也替他们教创业这件事情一定要有一种信仰。就是说每个人的信仰是不一样的，尤其是创业者，尤其是 founder，你必须要有比别人更多的信仰。所以就是从小就在这个 AI 的大时代长大的，他们的见识也比我宽多了，所以我都挺替他们高兴的。
因为你也是学视觉的，我能感觉到您对视觉这件事情其实有一种执着，或者说有一种执念啊，这个跟大语言模型是不一样的。但有很多人也在说， 叫语言即世界，也有说信息即世界的。现在像 Anthropic 创始人也在说，未来的整个世界就是一个数据化的世界。其实我觉得大家其实都在讲同一个事情，就是我们怎么去观察和认知世界，怎么用 AI 最终能够把这个世界给呈现出来。您可能更多在意这个视觉这块，然后大语言模型可能更多在语言这块。1年多的这个创业之后，你觉得这种执念还在吗？就还是认为，就是说，整个世界不能只是语言构成的，可能它是一个3维、4维，甚至更空间智能的一个世界。
对，我坚信这个世界不光是语言。我先说一下我的信念，但是我觉得在技术上呢，确实这里边有一个相通的概念，所以我也能理解有些人说语言即世界。那宏观的来说，我坚信这个世界不光是语言。如果我们语言的概念就是用这种离散的 discretized 的这个 token 的信息，相对来说是一个 one dimensional。虽然它表达的东西可以不是 one dimensional， 但是语言本身的 representation 还是比较 one dimensional 的。那我觉得这个世界其实还是更丰满，就是我一再的强调空间智能。它有很多的性质，包括物理的性质啊，这些它都是超越语言这个概念的，而且有很多就是不管是人类的行为还是大自然的行为，我觉得是不可能用语言来完全表述，也不可能用语言来做到想做的所有的事情。我们每天从睁开眼睛开始，你就想象我们每天作为人，我们的生活从生存到工作到创造到感受感知到这个更丰满的这个人与人之间的情感，各种生活它不是只是用语言能做到的。当然我觉得语言即世界这样的话，我觉得是挺好听的，我觉得也听起来没错，因为它是一个非常非常笼统的一句话。对，就是当你一句话很笼统的时候，就有点还行，错不了。但是技术上，我觉得现在数字那是肯定的，就是说，包括视觉模型、空间智能、机器人模型都会数字化。那我就不知道，如果数字和语言成了一个等同体，就是 the same thing 的话，那这个概念就有点换掉了。那如果是把数字也叫成语言，那行，那行吧，那你就啥都是语言，那我也没法争论这个问题了。
其实就有点像那个维特根斯坦，他是说信息即世界，就是如果换在信息即世界这个概念来说，可能就大家其实是在同一个概念下面来理解，或者说来推动这个 AI 的发展。
在我看来，信息是不光是语言的，它还有空间的信息。是空间的信息，我觉得是就和语言一样美、一样大的信息。
但是我们现在也遇到，我们现在在做空间智能或者在做世界模型，它的技术可能又没有大家想象中发展那么快。这个当然也是您现在在创业的这个方向，所以你觉得在这个方向上的创业也好，或者说叫探索也好，它大概需要多长时间能够真的看到有一些大家能感知的变化？
其实我觉得快和不快，这个真的很难说。说实话，这才1年多，从我们创业到今天，那个从这个屏模到这个real time 的video 模型，到这个多模态的模型，到我们自己，当然我们还比较就是还没有太大规模的推广，但是也是我们的3维模型，这个变化其实还是挺快的了。但是因为我觉得 AI 这个大环境，大家对 AI 的期待真的搞得就是有点太激进了。
是总觉得还不够快，是吧？
对对，当然了，这快和不快，咱们说了算也没有什么意思。但是我可以跟你说，为什么我要选择创业，就是因为我觉得时间点到了，因为毕竟创业和搞科研不一样嘛。这个创业还是要跟市场，非常尊重市场。但是呢，比我优秀的企业家都会说，那时间是最重要的，在这个企业的创业，你不能太早，太早了，这个市场和技术都没到。 你不能太晚，晚了的话也没你的份儿了。空间智能这个技术在World Labs 建立的时候还有点早，但是没有早到就是还有5年到10年。我是觉得在今后的1-2年里边会成爆发式的。你看这个视频技术，视频生成的这个长足进步，到我们做的 World Models， 我是坚信可以看到1-2年内的这种长足进步。那么我能看到市场的这个应用的可能性，我也不知道这是快和慢，我就觉得这是一个很好的时间点做空间智能。
您说未来1-2年就能有爆发性的一个发展，这个已经很快了，这个比我想象中都已经快多了。我想至少都要5年吧，这1-2年就能有爆发，这个非常快了，而且
我是
这个相当，
希望了，因为我觉得我们
嗯
现在在做的这个模型还是很 exciting 的。
哎，正好说说您这个现在 The World Labs 的进展。
我们在做 World Generation，生成世界，而且我们觉得就是说有很多很多的应用，从 digital creatives 到 game development，到 film，到 design，到 architecture，到 VR、XR、AR，到 robotic simulation，这些大的每一个我说的前面说的这个市场，它其实又细分很多很多，但这里边都有很多的对这个3维空间的诉求。而且生成式 AI 有一个很特别的一个现象，就是说因为它 lower 了原来很难做的事情，那么它就 open up 很多你想象不到的一些市场。生成3维空间其实是很难做的，这个世界上有多少人有这样的能力去生成3维空间？他们用的工具其实是很麻烦的。我自己试着用什么 Blender 啊、Unity 啊，我头都大了。但是实际上这些 creator，他们脑子里有各种各样好的想法，它其实是局限于 tools，而不是说局限于他脑子里的想法。那 AI 是可以赋能的，同样的道理 ，AI 可以给这些 existing creators 赋能，它也可以给很多人，他都不知道自己可以做到这个，因为以前太难了。就像我这样的人，我以前是不用 Blender、Unity 的，我觉得太烦了，我也没这时间。但是当 AI 能给我这个能力的时候，我当然会用了，因为它给我带来很多新的灵感和新的可能性。所以我认为 3D World Model 特别 exciting， 就是它是一个很难做的事儿，它是对很多 normal human 都很难做的事儿。那么，能让 AI 把这个 capability 降低它的门槛，它就是打开市场的一个非常好的一个机会。
我感觉，如果您的这个攻下来了这个堡垒的话，是不是就最后一个关节，就彻底打通用人工智能 AGI 了？我觉得，如果说没有空间智能，或者说没有整个3维的这个世界 generative 的这个模型的话，还不算 AGI。
我觉得 AGI 就像一个门，它上面有好多个锁，这个可能要很多钥匙去不同的钥匙去打。我确实认为空间智能是其中一把钥匙，但这么说也不合适，因为这个门它不是说黑白的打开和不打开，它其实是一点点被打开的。所以我一直说我都不知道什么叫 AGI versus AI， 因为 AI 和 AGI 似乎我们的梦想是一样的。回到好奇心，这是一个 scientific 的好奇心 ，machines 能不能 think， 能不能 do things， 这个就是 AI 当初的梦想。那 AGI 的梦想好像也差不多，所以我不知道 AI 和 AGI 的区别。但不管是 AI 还是 AGI 了，这个梦想是一步一步达到的，我们每走一步都离这个梦想更近一步。空间智能一定是这个通往这个梦想的一部分，因为就像我说的，不管是我们人类自身的 creativity 的赋能，从这个游戏到设计到工业，就不管是工业应用，不管是自身的赋能，还是给机器人赋能，还是我们的想象的这个 metaverse 元宇宙 AR VR 的这个内容生成和应用，都需要空间智能。
我有一个印象非常深刻的，你举过一个关于视觉的一个例子，就是讲那个三叶虫的故事。你从花了几亿年的时间把自己的一套复杂的视觉系统进化出来，但现在我们要做的其实是要给 AI 赋能这么一套复杂的视觉，还不是模拟的世界的一个系统，而是生成世界的一个系统。这个难度就是可想而知，就是你要几年的时间去对抗几亿年，我不敢想象，就是。
但是你不能这么想，因为我觉得就是
嗯
说，工程数学它的路径和进化的路径是不一样的，所以说这
嗯
个是苹果和橘子之间的比较。这么说吧，进化的迭代很慢很慢的，比这个算法的迭代慢多了。碳基和硅基运算也很不一样，所以说从时间上的话，我觉得是不太有可比性的。但是它还是给我们很多 insight 和 inspiration。
嗯
比如说，这又说到数据了，就是为什么数据那么重要？为什么当初我们实验室提出数据这个概念？那也得到很多进化的灵感，就是因为漫长的进
嗯，
化岁月，实际上就是大数据训练的一
对，
个岁月。那么我们现在因为在数字时代，我们不需要去等几十亿年来 collect 数据，我们可以大规模的 collect 数据。说到底，它又回到这个是相同的一个概念，只是它的这个执行是完全不一样，它跟进化、跟大自然执行这个是完全不一样。
它不是那种用时间去进化的一个过程，它甚至可能是线性，我不是线性进化，它甚至指数级的一个一个变化的过程。
因为数据很多嘛，你等于就
嗯。
是说，你一次看的数据可能是进化几千万年看的数据，是吧？你不能去完全去做这个相似的比较。
其实说到数据，我们可以回顾到你之前开始做 ImagineNet 这件事情啊。ImagineNet 本质上就是做的是一个数据的事情啊，但是
嗯，
是用一个更 community 的方式，然后更大的数据方式，来把这个把 AI
现在看已
往前。
经很小了，在这个
对，谢谢。
对，但是那个时候确实是最大的。
但那个时候做的时候，其实你也遇到很多挑战嘛，因为有很多人会质疑，首先是质疑说 ImagineNet 这件事情，另外一个就质疑说 ImagineNet 做这件事情背后其实基于的原理就是说，数据越大，它的计算能力越强，它的智能程
对
度越高。这个原理
对。
本身在当时其实是没有人信的。我觉得我们现在再回过头去看那个时候，就是那你为什么那个时候能坚定的相信这件事情，能够坚持下来？
其实我觉得相信自己的一个 hypothesis 也不是一件很奇怪的事吧。如果是在科学的
嗯
路上，你对自己的一些假设深度思考以后的假设，你总得有这么一些假设，你是会相信的。当然，作为科学者，你也得会知道有些假设就是错的。那肯定我有很多很多错过的假设，但是这个假设是因为是我可能就是想了很长时间，也确实是，它数学上它是一个就是 generalization 的一个概念。当时做了很多模型，我整个博士都是在做模型、做算法的，还是积累了很多的一些insight 吧，然后意识到了 AI 最终说白了，数学上到今天做的一件事就是 generalization。那你 generalization 怎么实现？其实就是两方面，算法和数据。而且他们两个是息息相关的。算法太复杂，数据少，你就 overfit；数据太多，算法不够好，也是 overfit。所以它其实这里边是有一个数学关系的。那我当时想了那么长时间，也坚信，而且我是算计算机视觉比较早期的做机器学习的那一代博士生，所以我很幸运，我的博士研究是在计算机视觉的一个转折点，我们用了很多机器学习的概念，所以我对这个就理解比较深刻吧，也不一定就我一个人理解深刻，但是我那个时候就看到了数据的重要性，所以就坚持下来了，就回到好奇心了。当你在为一个科学假设求证的过程，其实是挺好玩的，你充满了激情，然后就是一路打怪就打呗，这个只要还没被妖怪打死，你就继续打呗。
其实现在又从 ImagineNet 那个时候，其实又回到了一个到现在这个 The Word Lab，其实又回到一个算法和数据的一个关系的新的十字路口了啊。现在在作为世界模型或者作为视觉模型来说的话，数据可能又成为一个特别特别难的一个问
平静
题。
了，对
对，
对
那这个
对对，
瓶颈怎么去打破呢？就是因为你想空间，我们怎么去获取？哎，我摸一下这个东西，我是觉得它是热的、
是啊，
冷的，然后这个更难了，
对。
我感觉。
是啊，所以这个就是螺旋形上升。当年因为现在让计算机视觉有了最大的数据库，然后计算机视觉就蓬勃发展了。然后
嗯。
这个互联网带来了这个自然语言的大量的数据，那这个大语言模型又蓬勃发展了。回到视觉，当然视觉现在因为 AI 整个饼大多了，也不能只说视觉。那你看视频， 模型发展的那么快，也是因为有很多视频数据。自动驾驶发展的这么快，也是因为至少有一些公司也有这个很大量的自动驾驶啊、路况啊各种数据。所以你说的对，现在就是又回到了数据和算法。其实不叫又回到，就从来没离开过了。
那又是一个很关键的一个关键点啊！
我有时候觉得很好玩，即使是走到今天，大家还是更看重算法，但是所有真正做 AI 的人，不管是创业的还是大公司的，所有人都知道，数据不说更重要，至少是平等重要。但是好像这个八卦起来，好像算法还是更 fancy，实际上真的数据是一个科学。
就是好多人会把算法，甚至说算法工程师的工资都能比数据工程师的工资高好多。这里面确实大家好像对两件事情的认知、认为的难度也好，他的想法好像是确实是不太一样的，好像就觉得数据没有那么 sexy 哈。
人性的弱点之一就是偏见。
你觉得这是一个很大的偏见，对吗？
其实我觉得偏就偏呗，这世界反正也不完美。这个就是我真的这方面就皮比较厚。你说我觉得他是不是偏见？你要让我说这句话，行，他也是偏见。但是我是不是就要去抗争这个偏见？我觉得我懒得去抗争，我自己知道就行了。
哎，那现在这 Word Lab 怎么去解决这个数据瓶颈的问题呢？
那这个我就不能告诉你了。
这是商业机密是吧？
对呀、
OK，但是我可以想象，就是说，如果您能做出1-2年内会有爆发这一点的话，我觉得你肯定找到了突破世界模型数据瓶颈的一些方法啊，我很期待。回到刚才说的这个，自动驾驶这块啊，其实我也在想说，自动驾驶的这个模型是不是其实是一个缩小版的，或者是一个简化版的世界模型？
它应该是啊，它确实是应该是。我希望它是，当然我不知道特斯拉、威茂他们是什么，里边有没有什么很多3D 的信息。自动汽车就是机器人啦，它是人类最早的这个海量生产的机器人，但是这个机器人非常有限。这个机器人是什么？它是一个方盒子，长方形的盒子，基本上是在2维的世界里，因为路面是2维的，它不是3维的。而他在这个2维的世界只做一件事儿，就是不要去碰着别的东西。但别的东西有些是车，有些是路上的行人，有些是街边儿。你想想，和一个今后要做的3维的机器人，在3维的世界，它的目的就是去碰各种各样的东西，然后帮我们洗碗、做饭、叠衣服。所以你就知道，这个汽车还是一个很简单、很简单的机器人。所以我就说，汽车这个世界模型也更简单，因为他做的事儿简单。当然了，我不是说汽车不了不起，我觉得特斯拉和 Waymo 都很了不起。但是站在一个科学的、在宏观的看这个世界模型和机器人，就知道这只是开始了，下面做的事还复杂的多。
我们如果说再把现在的这个自动驾驶的这种像我们能理解的，或者说我们现在能接触到的所谓的能感知的空间模型，其实就是低配版的世界模型也好，就是自动驾驶这个模型。但是自动驾驶这个模型，它确实能处理的问题又是特别特别简单的这个问题，离我们真正的对还很远。
而且总的来说，当然了，我真不知道特斯拉他们内部在做什么，但总的来说，我觉得它不是一个以生成式的世界模型为主的，因为它不太需要去做生成。也许它在训练数据需要，但是我都不知道，我不知道特斯拉内部有没有生成式的，因为它主要做的事情不是生成，而是去做很多判断 recognition 啊 detection 啊这些。所以我对这个特斯拉它的那个世界模型，我觉得我不是特别的了解，但是我不认为它是一个很强的生成性的模型，因为它不需要做这件事。但是机器人需要，机器人做训练需要，因为你不可能有那么多数据。我们做的事情就是跟 creativity 有关的，跟 design 有关的，这些都需要，因为生成本来就是一个 use case。
正好说到机器人模型这件事情，我看到您跟英伟达那边也有一些合作啊，在做这
对，
个机器人的这块的模型。我们知道中国机器人现在这个产业就是非常的红火，然后有很多
嗯。
融资，然后有很多创业公司，但是中国更偏向在机械智能这块，可能在制造啊，在机械这块，在模型这块，我觉得尤其生成式模型这块突破还不是很大。就你怎么看现在机器人的生成式模型这个发展现在阶段？
我觉得机器人是一个很好玩的事情。现在硅谷机器人很火很火，而且我自己实验室也做了10年的机器人，我有很多优秀的以前的学生，各个地方引领机器人的这个研发不管
嗯。
是创业公司也好，还是大的公司也好，都有我的学生在做机器人，所以我非常非常的喜欢这一块，也看好机器人。但是呢，我也确实觉得要很冷静，就是机器人它的研究还是在早期。第一，就像我们说的，机器人真的是缺数据。你想想，做汽车这件事情都做了几十年，而且汽车还有很多很多的人一边开车一边在搜集数据。机器人
嗯。
是它基本上没有商业化的应用场景，尤其是在日常用，没有太多商业化的应用场景，所以它的数据很难收集。其实走深层式 AI 这条路就变成一个很有意思的、很有前进的一条路。而且深层式 AI 它尤其是视频生成啊这些，它其实提供了很多训练的不同的想象空间。你可以做 simulation，像我们做的事情，做 robotic simulation 是很有前景的。你也可以甚至在 inference time 用这个视频模型去帮助 online 的planning，就有很多很多的可能性。因为机器人旁边的领域 generative AI，它的这个发展很快，所以它在带动机器人的发展，所以我觉得很 excited， 但是还是拭目以待吧。我觉得机器人倒是还有一段路要走，就是从到商业化真的还有一段路要走，尤其是日常用的机器人。
工业机器人可能会快一点，对吧？
工业机器人早就在用了，
更智能的工业机器人。
对，因为它毕竟它的场景比较的这个，
哎，
对，它单一，它可以 constrain，然后它也有很多 data 嘛，数据。
如果说我们现在看到机器人这个行业未来还有比较长的路要走，中间一个很大的瓶颈其实是数据这块的话，有没有一些新的机会？就像您刚才说这个做robotic 的模拟数据这块的这样的创业公司，是不是也有一些机会专门去做机器人的数据创业？是不是比直接做机器人创业要更好？
数据公司还是有很成功的，你看前段时间那么火的 Scale AI，不是
AI
不就
啊。
是一个？所以说数据是一个商业机会，我完全相信。但是怎么做这里边，英文有一句谚语叫"devils are in the details"，right？所以说就是怎么做怎么做好，因为你做数据最重要的是就是第一你的市场有多大，第二就是你能不能做到客户想要的数据。机器人数据真的是不容易采集到，因为你需要机器人去采集机器人的数据。你让人去采集机器人的数据的话 ，scale 的这个也挺慢的，是吧？它不像车，因为车已经在路上跑了，它真的就是采集数据很快。
对于现在的机器人行业，两个，一个是数据问题，第二个是就应用场景。其实这个也是啊，就是因为没有数据的足够的发达，它的应用场景就会很有限，这个相关联的。
对
但确实就是大家也感受到，就是说好像没有特别强的这种应用场景。最好的像语数现在也是以表演性为
对，
多。如果说现在我们要来说整个的这个机器人作为一个发展阶段来说的话，你觉得这个阶段是很早期、很早期的话，那还需要哪些挑战，或者说需要多少年的时间才能把这个周期把它跑完？就中间还有哪些节点要待突破？
我只能告诉你这么一个数据，就是从自动驾驶这个概念开始到商业化，谷歌是在2006年成立了一个很小的自动驾驶的研发团队，Waymo 是在2024年上路的吧，所以经历了快20年吧。这里边有一些可比性，也有一些不可比性。就是比如说汽车这个行业非常成熟，它的所有的 supply chain OEM，它的 use case 都非常成熟，所以这一点呢，它又比机器人快很多。但是呢，AI 那个时候不成熟，所以这个自动驾驶走了很长一条 AI 的路。那现在 AI 的路肯定会走得更快，但是除了工业机器人或者是有限的工业机器人，又没有什么像汽车一样成熟的 机器人的应用场景。所以这条路是不是会走比20年快，还是比20年慢，其实很难说。但是我相信 AI 比这个当年自动驾驶要快一些。但是我没有回到我刚才就是它的问题也更难一些，它是更三维世界的。我其实经常被问到这个问题，就是我觉得还有几年啊这些，我其实很不愿意回答这个问题，因为它很复杂。我只能说我相信咱们的有生之年。
我拭目以待，拭目以待。虽然我知道这个里面有商业机密，还不能透露啊，但是可以想象一下啊。我们再来看整个的空间智能的一个复杂视觉系统长发展的话，你觉得现在这个阶段跟三叶虫的进化那个阶段，那个4亿多年的进化阶段，你觉得处于哪个位置？是处于那4亿多年的早期，还是4亿多年已经走到中期了？
哇，我其实觉得很难比。你这问题问得好，我有时候自己也想，我觉得现在的这个空间智能，尤其是一些多模态的这个模型哈，有些方面已经远远超过了人类。比如说物体的识别，那早就超过人类了。我们能认识多少种狗，能认识多少种鸟，多少种车，那 AI 肯定这方面已经比普通人好多了。还有就是人其实三维理解不错，但三维的生成我们是很糟糕的。一般正常人，除非你去上了学，做三维生成都就脑子里做三维生成很一般。不是说小孩子在玩泥巴，那个三维生成是它带着一些具身的一些参与，就是脑子里然后叫你画出来一个三维生成，这都很差劲的。那 AI 也可以做到一些非常非常优秀的。但是你说今天我们的空间智能能对就人睁开眼睛，我们对我们的三维世界的那种深层次的理解，从细节到物理世界的各个物体的关系，甚至它的这个材料，它的这个物理属性，那我们又有非常非常丰满和丰富的一些智力在里边，是吧？那还更别说我们对 social 信息的理解，人和人之间的理解，这些都是视觉理解，我没有在说语言。人又非常非常的复杂，所以你说从这个进化，我觉得有些方面它已经跟人一样了，甚至超越了。那有些方面的话，确实远远还不如人类。而且，即使是我作为一个科技人、AI 人对空间智能的信仰，它也不是纯粹的盲目的信仰，它是一种带着对科技的理解和这么多年深耕这个领域，我走到今天，或者是我和我的同事们，我们看到这个技术的机会和这个技术的发展方向，它也不是纯粹的是一个带着纯情怀就够了的。情怀需要，创业需要情怀，但是对科技的判断、发展和理解，还是需要这个很强的逻辑和科学的判断。
有科学的严谨性的推理在背后
对，
现在因为我们大家把所有的焦点和关注点都放到的是几家核心的大公司上面，就是比如说像Google 啊、Gemini 啊，OpenAI 也从一家小公司现在变成一个巨头了嘛，Anthropic 其实也变成一个巨头了。都放到这些巨头上面，然后美股也是所谓七巨头、七姊妹这样的。那你觉得小公司在这个浪潮里面还有机会吗？或它的机会又在哪里呢？或者对新的创业者来说，
我希望有，因为我的公司就是小公司。但是希望归希望，就是这个问题其实提出来是有道理的，因为资源的整合，从数据到算力到人才，能整合的这种公司，它的存活和盈率还是更大，这是有一定道理的。但是呢，我觉得我们不能只看这些比较显性的因素，因为显性的因素很简单，容易看到，所以容易被传阅。但是我说一个很简单的例子，就是 AI coding。Microsoft 是第一个做 AI coding 的吧 ，Copilot，它有所有的天时地利人和，所有的资源，它有所有的场景，GitHub 都是 Microsoft 的。那它怎么就没做出来？现在这个硅谷比较火的 Cursor， 包括 Cloud Code， 就怎么就是在这样的一个情况下，一个小公司可以突破重围，这就是说明有些很多显性的因素是不够的。如果大家都在不断的去看这个显性的因素，它实际上这个判断就有偏差。人类历史上没有一个时代只有大公司有盈率，没有一个。而这些时代也好，社会也好，很多东西很多时候 这些大公司都是有很大的资源整合能力的。所以我觉得这里边就涉及什么，是涉及创造力，涉及机会，涉及执行，涉及时间，这些都是元素。再加上我觉得 AI 确实是一个 horizontal 的技术，也就是说它可以提供很多应用级别的机会，大公司做不完的，但小公司有太多的机会去把这些应用做得非常好，做到极致，慢慢的撕开市场，这都是有可能的。
所以对于小公司来说，可能就是去选择这些 vertical 的应用机会，是不是会更好，更有机会？
看是什么样的小公司，我觉得没有能力做基础模型的，做大模型的，那你肯定是更需要选择应用级别的。应用级别也不是说只是 vertical， 包括我们公司，我也不知道你说它是小还是大，我觉得还是算小，但是我们也有足够的能力做这个 foundation model 啊。那我们也会做 model，
做 model 的必须得有您这样的基础才行。
对，就是说你做 model 的话，你的人才啊这些，它的结构是不一样的嘛。
有一个您经常提的理念，就是AI for good，就是你觉得 AI 要更普惠，给普通人带来好处，不能只是掌握在少数人的手里，然后也以及怎么让 AI 更好的为人的向善来发挥作用，而不是去作恶。这个对于科学家来说，很多时候是两面的。Jeffrey Hinton 教授他最近也是一直在提这个，就要警惕 AI 可能带来的比核弹更大的毁灭性的这个作用。但也有另外一个观点，就是说我们现在是在发展阶段，应该少提 AI 带来的威胁。从您的角度来说，这个阶段你觉得我们要更看重发展和伦理这块，还是可能同时要更好的做好安全和对齐？
其实我觉得这个事情挺 common sense 的。AI 是工具，工具就是双刃剑。人类的每一个工具，小到一把火，一个石头做的斧子，大到这个你说的核弹也好，生物技术也好，这个 AI 也好，它都是双刃剑。那我当然认为我们对工具的使用是应该向善的，但是同时也要防止工具它被运用错，或者是被有意的、无意的，都是有可能的。所以我认为两边的极端都不够理性，就是说你说只发展完全不 care 它的这个安全性和向善性，那绝对是 disaster。但是如果只是天天去讲它的这个向善性、伦理性，不去发展，那也会失去很多机会。毕竟好的技术是可以带来很多福祉的。所以我就经常跟媒体说，我觉得我其实对媒体没啥用，我是一个很酷，我说的话都很酷，都很 boring，就是说没有那种一下子放一个大 pose 的说我只相信非黑即白，我说的是最 boring 的话。
但是这是科学家的严谨。
其实我觉得这跟科学家没有关系，这是做人的常识。就像又回到做父母，你说你教不教你的孩子用火？你肯定要教你的孩子用火，怎么做饭。那你教的时候，你肯定做饭的好处你得教，用火的好处，那用火的坏处你也得教啊。这其实真的是一种常识。
那我们如何在 AI 发展的过程里面，让 AI 更好的普及，或者说普惠大众，而不是变成一种权利？我现在越来越觉得，就是当技术可能掌握在少数的巨头或者掌握在政府手里的时候，它有可能会变成一种权力工具。那怎么把这种权力工具不是变成控制人类的一个方式，而是变成惠及人类的一个方式？
对，你说的对，AI 是一个权力的工具，它也是个向善的工具，它永远是一个工具。在我看来，这工具会变得越来越强大，但是在它变得不可控之前，它是人类的工具，人类有责任让它可控。但是就像其他工具一样，我们对其他工具的期待永远不是说让这个工具去 figure out 要做什么，向善也好，这是人类的责任。所以我觉得对 AI 的控制，对 AI 的怎么去引导，这是人类，这是法律，这是制度，这是教育，这是社会共同的责任。每个社会不一样，每个个体也不一样，但是这个责任在人类。
您在书里面也 最后也有提到嘛，就是说AI 并不是要替代人性，很多东西是 AI 没法替代的，包括共情这件事情，情感的这个交流这件事情，人类自身的这个需求可能也是很需要的。那我们怎么在 AI 发展里面去设计一个，或者说在它发展过程中去做一些什么事情，让人类本身的人性那个闪耀的一面还能够保持到不被替代呢？
这个问题问的挺好的，何娟。我觉得是这样的，我觉得我们真的是要理性的看待 AI 是什么，然后用理性的方式去思考今天的社会需要什么。比如说教育，我就觉得我们太需要在 AI 的时代更新我们教育的理念和教育的方式。我们需要让孩子们用这个工具，让孩子们学会知道这个工具可以让他们的创造性也好，学习也好，赋能很多。但是同时也要让他们知道这个工具有可能出现的问题。而且这不光是教育孩子，我觉得成年人的世界最大的一个问题就是我们以为需要教育的是孩子，实际上最需要被教育的是我们自己。所以就是教育自己，教育公众，给公众足够的信息，给政策和法律制作者更多的信息和学习的机会，这些都非常非常重要。说到最后，我们对 AI 的发展和治理，其实就是我们自己的自身的学习发展和治理。真的说到最后还是人的问题。
就是自己的这个教育反倒是更难的，因为要跟人性做斗争这件事情，比跟 AI 较劲儿要更难。
确实是，我觉得我们在这个 AI 的时代，尤其是一个有智力能力的工具，其实给我们的启发，应该是我们应该更好的了解自己，更好的治理自己。这个自己既是个体，也是群体。所以有时候我自己觉得 AI 的这个讨论啊，就是沸沸扬扬的。有时候我就觉得大家很热衷于讨论 AI，其实说到底，人性。个体的人性和群体的人性欠缺的还是自省吧。
其实我们可能在 AI 发展过程里面，反倒要有更多机会来讨论人性本身的发展的这个问题。现在也有很多年轻人也很困惑，就是包括最近硅谷也在裁员啊，就我在硅谷也听到很多之前斯坦福学计算机的，就是大家都是抢着要，现在也面临裁员很多问题，就是很多人都在说 AI 会替代很多工作，然后可能很多人会面临裁员，然后等等的各方面的这些因素在。那我们在这个发展里面，就是不管像您说的教育，还是我们自己去认知这个世界、自我的自省也好，我们应该怎么去来看待现在 AI 可能给我们造成的冲击，不管是工作上的，还是生活上的，甚至是情感上面的这部分，我们自己应该做些什么？
我觉得个体和群体肯定有不同需要做的。个体需要做的就是一个时代在变化，第一，认识这个时代是在变化。我觉得现在再去做鸵鸟也不是一件好事，这个时代确实在变化，工作会变，任何一次大的这个科技革命都会带来工作的变迁，它甚至是阵痛，有些阵痛时间短一点，软着陆，有些阵痛它就不一定是软着陆，会带来社会的动荡。所以作为个体怎么去了解学习 again 这个又回到就是还是保持一种好奇心吧，就是对生命的好奇，对于世界的好奇。就算你的好奇心在成年人的世界来自于一种恐慌，那也行吧，这个至少有个动力让你有好奇心去学，这是个体的一个需要自省的。作为群体的话，我自己觉得我们所有这个社会在 AI 的时代都应该，就我们教育的结构，这个所谓的 K-12 的教育做下来，就是让一群10几岁的孩子过各种应试，或者是做什么标准答案的教育。当然了，至少美国这边它不只是应试，但是它还是包括应试，而且它的很多教学的方法还是一种有带着知识的填充。那这些我觉得都是可以更新的，而且应该急需更新，因为 AI 在快速的证明很多东西是机器可以做到的，那再让人去花十几年、几十年的时间做一大半机器可以做到的事情，这是对人类的一种浪费啊！所以我自己特别想呼吁，就是思考教育的人，能影响教育政策的人， 和在执行教育的人，去好好的把握这个时代的机会。我们已经100多年没有变过教育的这个方法论了。100年以后，历史学家回过头来看21世纪上半叶，我最大的希望是人类做了一次教育的革命。
你期待的教育革命会是什么样子呢？就是比如说，我们应该去推动的教育改革也好，或者说革命也好，它的一个方向，还有具体的一些事儿，有哪些是你觉得特别期待？
我觉得应该用 AI 去赋能教育者和学生，然后用大量的 AI 赋能以后节约出来的时间和精力，让这些学生们，当然通过老师的 guidance 或自身的 guidance 去积累认知和能力，都是 AI 做不到的。就是人类是有巨大潜力的，每个个体都有巨大潜力，我们的大脑没有被完全的用上，那我们的个体和群体都没有发挥出我们所有的潜力。你就看人类个体的差别，就可以看到这个潜力有多大。至少有些人你会觉得他简直是非人般的、超人般的能力，那你就会知道，其实这种能力是在人性，是有的。我们很多很多人都没有发挥出来。那有了 AI 这样的工具，或者甚至有了 AI 对人类工作的冲击，那这正好是一个契机，去重新思考整个教育。我们真的是100多年没怎么变教育的这个方法论，我觉得现在是一个彻底改变教育方法论的时候。从这个知识性的教育到技能性的教育，到认知结构，到做人本身的教育，都可以有一个机会改变。
但是我们也看到，因为这一波 AI 发展带来的，反倒不是说我们去就是认知教育的这个变化，反倒是不管是在美国还是在中国，都越来越重视工科，反倒是一些就刚才您说的有一些就认知层面的可能会是相对偏大家理解的所谓文科的这个教育，现在变得越来越不那么重要了。就连美国也开始谈什么制造业回归、工程师培养什么这些东西，哎，我觉得这个其实也挺让我困惑的。
其实我觉得真正的教育的改变，我们不应该再分工科文科了。因为 AI 可以让所有人都学会coding。那你说这些人是工科还是文科？AI 也可以让很多人变得更好的这个去感知美，或者是去读书，去什么去作诗。所以说，我觉得就这个方法论都可以改啊。以前是分这些工科、文科，但是 AI 它给了你很多机会。那天我们家小孩子在读《Harry Potter》，在问我什么第5本书里边有一个什么，就是反正就有点很复杂的一个，就是我们俩都没搞清楚的这个，就发生了什么事情。然后我们就用 AI 去问呢，我们就用这个 ChatGPT、Gemini 去问，一个一个的，就说这个时候 Dumbledore 做了什么，这个时候 Harry 做了什么，这个时候 McGonagall 做了什么，问了一大堆，我们就读懂了，就搞清楚，原来是这样。这个小小的例子就是，我觉得 AI 给了我们很多机会，但是我也觉得人最后还是说我们自己怎么去用这个工具。我其实最害怕的是人类的放弃，或者是部分人类的放弃，就觉得哎呀 AI 这么聪明，没我啥事儿了，这个很可怕。
躺平了，躺平了，
对，是吧？这个词儿我也不知道，很形象。但是就这个很可怕。其实人类有太多太多的潜力，人类有太多太多可以创造这个世界的机会，人类有太多太多可以把人类世界变得更好的机会。AI 就是工具。
刚才一直听您在说 AI 就是工具这句话本身其实挺让我震撼的，因为我接触了很多朋友，尤其是做科研的、做 AI 这个方向的，反倒是一些不用 AI 的人，或者说不懂 AI 的人，他们会更多说 AI 就是工具。然后真正在从事 AI 这个行业的人都经常会说 AI 不是工具，AI 是全部，AI 就是未来，就是世界啊！我们不能只是把 AI 当做一个工具，因为您是 AI 真正专家和这个科学家，所以这句话反倒从您的嘴里说出来，我觉得还挺让我震撼。
我觉得人自身的 agency 是最重要的。我们如果放弃了自身的 agency， 我们就放弃了我们改变自己和改变世界的这个 motivation。我其实不懂什么叫 AI 就是世界，我真的不懂。那我也可以说 一花一世界，我不知道 AI 就是世界这句话是什么意思。
AI 只是工具这句话背后，其实我们怎么看待 AI 和人的关系？就人类把它当工具，意味着人类把自身还是看作更重要的一个，就是人
对，
类要更关注自我。
其实 AI 是工具这句话带着我对人的信仰吧，就是我对人性和人类社会的信仰，因为我信仰的是人，我信仰的不是 AI。
你刚才也说到家庭给你很多很珍贵的东西，能不能举一两个例子啊？就是家庭赋予你的这种珍贵。
其实我在书里也提到，我就是那本书，其实写完了以后，我觉得那本书我在写我妈妈，不是在写我，因为它
对，我
确实是
看了你妈妈的故事，你爸爸的故事，我觉得特别特别好。从一个普通家庭这么一步一步自己通过努力成长起来，非常
是的，
励志。
我们家庭是挺普通的，而且我们家挺小的。我小时候，我的记忆里有爷爷姥姥，但是爸爸那边也没有人，就是说所以记忆就是一个很小的、很普通的家庭。然后我妈妈身体特别不好，确实是，然后一路走过来。不过 again 就是也不是什么很特别，有很多人家庭是这样，我反倒觉得他给了我一些很多很珍贵的东西，等我长大了以后才知道。因为小时候嘛，年轻时候觉得花很多时间在这些生存压力，但是走过这条路才发现，哇，第一，它真的可以磨练意志。这个磨练意志这种话听起来很大，或者是老师说了也没用，但是你真的是有过这些经历，你是根本不用说，这个就练出来了。第二呢，确实作为一个 AI 科学者，我做的工作那么的机器，就是跟计算机打交道，跟电脑打交道，跟算法打交道，跟数据打交道。但是你人生的经历其实赋予很多对人性的体会。那这个经历它的复杂，尤其是生老病死，看到很多的这种英文叫 vulnerability，就是做
嗯，
人的 vulnerability，其实给了我很多视角，我觉得是很珍贵的视角。我在那个书的第10章，其实专门写了我妈妈生病。我为什么要写我妈妈生病？是因为，我也算是在 AI 界很少的，我也不知道是不是第一个、第二个，反正很少的，就是美国医学院院士。那我为什么拿到美国医学院院士？是因为我花了很多年做，因为做教授可以做不同的工作，他不光是做 AI 了，我还做了一些跟医疗有关的工作。那尤其是叫 healthcare delivery，那我就觉得我自己这么几十年陪着妈妈，真的是在医疗系统的摸爬滚打，我们
久
这个
病成医。
绝对的就是，而且就是那么多场手术，那么多场大大小小的病，每天的这个照顾，它让我对医疗有了深刻的了解。那当我去做这些 AI 赋能医疗的项目，我就觉得我跟别人的理解不一样，我真的是多了更多的理解。他也让我能更好的找到这些医院的同事啊，这些，因为这些同事觉得我尊重他们，就他会觉得，哎，你也不是这个只会说这个computer science 的一个人，你居然能理解我们的工作，然后知道我们的痛点，那这个绝对是给了我一个很特别的一个视角。
挺了不起的，就久病成医到还可以就是成院士。
没有，这个是人生没有白走的路。
对对对，所以这也是好奇驱动啊，
其实这个是爱的驱动，就是因为我爱妈妈，我想让她活下来吧，或者身体好，所以我花大量的精力。这个真的是带着这样的一种驱动。
菲菲教授，其实我自己存在一个很大的困惑哈，因为我们媒体行业，你知道，就是近年来也都在讨论，一个是 AI 是对我们媒体行业冲击，首先是很大的，接下来我觉得
嗯
对我们这个行业也会有巨大的一个改变，但我现在也在做一些新的产品，希望能够在这个 AI 时代能够又成就一个更好的我们的这个企业和
嗯
产品。但另
嗯
外一个方面，我们也发现有很多跟我们的长期以来的这种专业主义新闻价值观其实是有一些冲突的。就比如
嗯
说现在 AI 可以自己生成这么多的内容语言，然后可以
嗯
生成图 片，然后让网上的这种 fake news，然后虚假图片也满天飞，又没有办法，很多人也很难识别，现在连视频都可以作假了，就在这个上面。我觉得我们怎么来看待 AI 可能带来的这些虚假信息？但我知道您也肯定饱受一些困扰，就作为名人嘛，就很容易在网上被各种谣言这个伤害啊。就我们怎么来
是是是，
看待？
对，
嗯
其实有时候我其实特别感同身受，因为确实是经常有人给我打电话，你在哪儿了？又出啥事儿了？我说没有啊，这个我在家里睡觉，或者是各种各样的谣言是挺多的。这个而且有很多关心我的人，关心到都不敢给我打电话说哇，你出这么大事儿，我们就不打扰你了。我说我没出事儿啊，是吧？对呀、都好好的。对，所以确实能理解，也能感同身受。这就是我刚才说到，我觉得这里边有好几层。第一个就是公众教育，因为 AI 是个新事物，那我就在想，汽车刚刚发明的时候非常不安全。第一根本就没安全带这个说法，第二车速啊这些，所以其实人类还是付出了血泪的代价的。那慢慢的，我们让汽车变得更安全，但是就是现在，那你的孩子是青少年，他有一天要开车了，你肯定心里非常紧张，要给他好多好多的 education。想想小时候，我记得我爸就说，你手湿的时候永远不能摸那个插座。那这话我爸可能说了200遍吧。这就是教育。我觉得 AI 的不安全性，AI 的 fake news，我觉得公众教育太重要了，因为它这个工具永远会被人利用。我相信你在媒体就看到，你防不胜防。有些确实是，比如说前段时间有关于我的假新闻，我就问了一个新闻界的朋友，我说：“哎，这假新闻怎么这么多哈、太牛了！”他们说，他说，
其实我当时看到看到新闻，我特别想给你发信息说这是真的吗？
对呀、这我都不知道。就是后来我才了解到，我这做 AI 的人啊都没有意识到 AI 在里边发生的，就是说一个人他可能别有用心也好，或者什么的也好，他写一条，然后就可以用。你说以前没有 AI，他可以用，他得自己吭哧吭哧写，或者是找些人来吭哧吭哧写。现在有了 AI，他按一下就可以出1000条，出10000条，所以 AI 确实给不好的事情赋能。那这个情况下，我觉得首先作为个体，作为社会，我们得懂。我们每个人都会遇到这些事情，我们得懂。其实像我知道了这是 AI 写的，我就觉得很好玩，我还专门去看，哦，AI 还可以这样写，我就不伤心了。但是，但是说严肃一点，就是第一，自身的教育很重要，群体的教育很重要。第二，就是制度和政策，这个也是建立在认知之上的。就是说，如果我们对这个工具的破坏性没有认知的话，它不光是假新闻了，那么还有很多其他的破坏性。我们没有认知，我们就永远不会找到更好的制度或者更好的方式去 deal with it。所以这个也非常重要。第三，我就很赞同你在做的事情啊，它工具就在这儿了，它带着好，带着坏。你作为一个新媒体人，你怎么去更新你自己的产品？你怎么让通过你的智慧、你的执行力，让你的新的产品创造性有特色？所以，比如说，我看你写的东西，我就会知道这肯定不是 AI 写的，或者是他给我他，或者是他用 AI 的工具，但是他带给我很多有价值的东西。那这个又要靠我们人的创造性，所以确实是不容易。我们每个人在 AI 的时代，有时候也是受害者，有时候也被冲击的很大。但是还是我刚才说的，我觉得责任在我们啊，就是说，嗯，怎么去用这个工具，怎么不被这个工具伤害，怎么去让这个工具不去伤害别人，怎么把自己想做的事做好，这所有的这些责任还是人的责任啊。
特别好，特别好。有很多年轻人都非常非常喜欢您，然后我也想就是能够请您，是不是能够就当您跟16岁您刚开始去求学路上的自己再说一句话的话，能不能给现在的青年人吧，说一些寄语？
我觉得我特别 特别笨说这句话，说这些话。给青少年的寄语，我真心的觉得这是一个非常非常了不起的时代，因为这个时代，我们的科技在变更，我们的社会在变更，那么这个时代的青少年是有很多很多机会的，但这个机会最终把握这个机会的是你们自己。你怎么去带着你的好奇心，带着你的在我书里提到的北极星心里的那种激情，那种信仰，那种追求去做你自己，然后去改变世界。我觉得这还是这个时代给你的最大的一个机会，也希望这些小朋友们青少年们意识到这个机会，给自己这个机会，就努力的去做呗。
好啊，谢谢菲菲教授。然后今天对话的最后，我也想用你的一句话来结尾，就是希望人类永远不要自我放弃。
好的，
谢谢菲菲教授，真的是百忙之中能够跟我们做一次这样的交流和对话，特别感谢。
谢谢。
关注赵和娟 Talk 与改变世界的人。
The year 2025 presents two faces.
摩擦在升级，贸易与技术的墙越筑越高。
Globale Lieferketten erleben eine komplette Neuordnung.
Nous devenons des îles. Tout devient local.
But wait,
Look at the butterfly effect caused by AI.
AI breakthroughs know no borders, triggering a global storm.
大模型在迭代，应用在落地，
速度快得惊人。
Chips, data, talent, creating a node and efficient map.
We are all balancing long-term strategy with short-term survival.
Only intensive conversations can capture the frontier voices.
We need to
rebuild a true global vision.
我哋需要跨越邊界嘅多擁洞策略。
우리는 이 복잡한 미래에 적응해야 합니다.
Global open conversation is no longer an option. It is a strategic necessity now.
So, welcome to the T-Edge 2025.
12月8日至21日，我们全球同步开启
Linking Silicon Valley and Beijing,
Toronto,
New York, Los Angeles,
香港、
深圳、
上海、
Singapore,
그리고 서울,
Dubai,
Berlin.
我们将全球直播连线与独家闭门思想会合二为一。
We unite the world's top scientists, entrepreneurs, and investors. 2025 P-Edge 2025 T-Edge. See you there.
Wir sehen uns dort.
Rendez-vous là-bas.
거기서 만나요. 不見不散.
Marakomunek.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Cross-Border CIO Themed Dialogue, co-presented by the TMT Pulse Group and the Barron's China. So I'm your moderator today. My name is He Jin. I'm the founding partner of a GM law firm. I'm right now located in Beijing. In today's rapidly evolving technological landscape, increasingly complex and global business environment, the role of the CIO has long transcended that of a traditional technology manager. They have become core drivers of corporate strategy, guardians of risk control, and even bridges for cross-border technological collaboration, especially against the backdrop of the intertwined yet differentiated Sino-US technological ecosystems. How to balance technological self-reliance with reliance on global supply chains, address cross-border regulatory challenges, and leverage technological collaboration to solve global issues are core topics of great concern to the industry. Today, we're really privileged to have three senior experts deeply engaged in the CIO field. And first, I want to introduce our three industry experts. So from the US, we have Mr. Thomas Phelps, SVP of Corporate Strategy and CIO at Razorfish. And then I think Thomas is also a John professor and a board director as well. And we have Mr. Howard Miller, CIO at the UJA Anderson. And we also, from Hong Kong, we have Mr. Tai Yang, CIO of the Hospital Authority of Hong Kong. And we have Nana Blumenfeld from the PwC. And we will have Nana to give us a very special presentation at the very beginning. So, she's our special guest today. So now, first of all, let's join me in a very virtual round of applause to welcome all our guests today. We're really looking forward to bringing the valuable insight to all the audience in Greater China and across Asia and the world. So without further ado, we're going to start today's discussion. So in the very beginning, today we have very special content from our colleague from the PwC. PwC just did a responsible AI survey, especially from the US. So we have Nana to present the key findings from the survey. And then we invite our guest speakers to share their views and the insights that are at the core concern of the CIOs. So Nana, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for having me. As mentioned, I'm a PwC. I'm a partner in our U.S. practice, focusing specifically on responsible AI. We've been capturing sentiment and maturity around responsible AI within organizations for a number of years. Our newest survey just came out, so we thought that content might be helpful for this audience. So if I could just share my screen. So as was mentioned, this is primarily a survey of U.S. organizations. We asked executives to give us an indication of what they've been focusing on what their priorities are, on where they see gaps and limitations related to responsible AI. Responsible AI is an important topic on the CIO agenda, mostly because of the significant enthusiasm around the adoption of the various AI capabilities, but we also understand that to adopt any type of technology, especially technology that is primarily third-party provided and has a very complex supply chain ecosystem around it, we have to ensure that our programs are designed appropriately in order to incorporate these technologies. We have the right controls in place. We understand what technology is coming into our organization, and importantly, that we're thinking about ways to leverage AI for our technology functions. So it's a big agenda topic for the CIO space. When we surveyed organizations, we're finding that while many organizations are starting to build various responsible AI or maybe more generally AI governance types of practices, the maturity around those practices are still not as evolved as we would like to see. However, we're seeing that first-line teams in particular are taking an ownership of responsible AI, primarily because they're the ones implementing AI systems or using them on the periphery, and they have strong opinions for what effective governance would look like from a first-line perspective. So there's a real opportunity to institutionalize that from a second-line point of view. Pretty much everybody agrees that the technology is moving very quickly, and with that, the governance around these technologies needs to evolve as well. More recently, with AI agents becoming a more prominent topic of discussion, and the fact that we appreciate that we can't manage agents the same way that we might have managed more bespoke-built applications like we had done to date. The other components here that we found quite interesting is that there's a gap between defining principles and broad policies and actually translating that into prescriptive activities that individuals can actually take in order to align to the controls and expectations of the organization. And as organizations mature, we're seeing them focus on really granular specifications for testing, observability, and other type of automation to support the scale and more broad enterprise controls that they need. So a lot of interesting priorities, mostly, I think, responding to the fact that the technology landscape is continuing to shift and evolve very quickly. Governance programs are trying to evolve given the pace of change, and also the fact that there is a growing pressure to adopt AI as part of the broader enterprise strategy. So interesting components here. The other piece that I found quite interesting going through our responses, oftentimes when you hear the term responsible AI, we're talking a lot about risk mitigation, risk management, controls. Not that those are bad things. In fact, that's a really big benefit of these types of programs. But our respondents indicated that overwhelmingly the primary benefits that they're seeing to responsible AI programs are that they can get more value out of their AI systems, which really helps emphasize this point that to get responsible use, to understand what your technology is going to do for you, to get that value that you're looking for, you have to understand how these systems are operating. You have to have controls around how they're deployed. We have to be thinking carefully around the appropriate use cases. We have to be defining good quality-led practices for development, testing, deployment, monitoring, and so on and so forth. So responsible AI is really being viewed there's a perception change around responsible AI that I think is quite important, because we're moving from just a pure risk management lens to how can we sustain the value out of these significant investments that we're making as enterprises. And the CIO function has a big role to play in not only designing the strategy, but effectuating the strategy and ensuring that that propagates throughout the entire organization. So many other findings that come from this. This is our U.S. Responsible AI survey. We've done a number of other surveys over the years looking at global risks, where we survey the risk functions from different global organizations. Happy to share some of those links, and happy to discuss some of these topics in greater detail. So thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Nala, for giving us something really valuable to discuss. So I actually just want to go to each of our industry experts. What's your immediate reaction to this report, to this survey? Thomas?
Great, thanks for having me. Thomas Phelps, I'm the CIO of Laserfish, and maybe a quick introduction. So Laserfish is a software company headquartered in Long Beach, California, but with a global presence, including a presence in both Shanghai and in Hong Kong as well. We have actually a software development center in Shanghai. We're a market leader in document management and process automation, and very pleased to serve companies globally. I would say I was a little bit surprised to see that only 28% of survey respondents in the U.S. said that responsible AI is a core business priority. And I think if I read the numbers correctly, Ilana, that only 33% have a clear adoption rate, right, across the enterprise. So having 1/3 of organizations say that responsible AI is a business priority seems to be low to me, and I would hope that that number will go up to 90 to 100%. Ilana and I were just speaking at an Osaka, Los Angeles chapter event earlier tonight, and one of the things I shared is similar to you have organizations adopting security by design and privacy by design. I really think it's important for IT leaders to also adopting AI governance by design as well. What that means is embedding in AI governance across the entire software development lifecycle and not as an afterthought. And I mentioned the term pay me now, pay me later. If you don't adopt AI governance and AI responsibly up front, then to retrofit your organization with the right controls that Ilana talked about later is going to be much more costly, and I would estimate in the ballpark 5 to 7x more costly in terms of adding controls after the fact. In fact, with the amount of changes happening with the AI models and the pace of change and innovation, if you go all in with one particular AI model and are vested in, but find out later that there's concerns around risk and security and those areas, it's going to take a lot more effort to undo that and relook at your control environment a little bit later. So that's my gut reaction to the survey, but great survey, and Ilana, thanks for bringing that perspective to this dialogue today.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Thomas. I was surprised by that the low percentage, 28%. I don't know whether now the survey includes law firms. I guess maybe the 28% includes most law firms. We are using AI, within the firm. Even we're in China, more and more we're using that. But yes, that's the first question. And we know our clients now are getting more and more anxious about how the law firms are using the AI. That's normally the first question. So that's why probably law firms are probably more responsible with our AI policies. Maybe I'll go to our Professor Howard. Anything you want to comment about?
Sure. And so, hi, I'm Howard Miller. I'm the Chief Information Officer at the UCLA Anderson School of Management, based in Los Angeles, California, and we certainly serve international students. I don't know that I'm surprised at the result, and I think Ilana hinted at it just because of the pace of change, right? And so this has been sort of a relay race to let's see what generative AI looks like. Let's figure out what use cases may work. Let's get something piloted. Let's see if we can prove it out. Let's see if people will actually use it. Oh, and then let's figure out what data we put into it. Oops, did we make a mistake? Was that clean data? Should that have been clean data? Should we have put that in? Do we have data governance? So AI governance is probably the last step in all of this because all of that other stuff precedes it. And it's a little bit, as I call it, a relay race to see how quickly you can get things into production, into users' hands to get the benefits of the AI. And then you almost, as a reflex, go back later and say, oh yeah, we should have done it this way. We could have done it more responsibly. Now that we're starting to scale, we have to go back and get AI governance. So I'm not surprised that the numbers are so low, just because of the way in which the pace of change is evolving.
Got it. So should I just summarize your view that everybody trying to use it first, right? Or trying to justify the use, trying to make sure, the people in your organization, institution, so they have a good taste of the value of the AI.
I think that's fair. I think we're all trying to figure out in our organizations what generative AI means for us, and some of us are way ahead of others. Some still haven't started their journey. We talked a lot about 2025 being the year of agentic AI. I don't know that it ever really achieved it. I think 2026 may be the year of agentic AI. It's been probably a little longer to get there, but people are really starting to figure out, now that we may have mastered generative AI a little bit, how we could benefit from agentic AI. So again, I think the pace at which everything is moving still is the predicator of how we put responsibility behind everything we're doing.
Right. Okay. So, Kevin, would you like to make your comment? What's your immediate reaction to this survey? Although this is really about the U.S. industry, right? Do you see something similar in our region?
Sure, Jane. My name is Kevin. I'm the CIO of Hospital Authority. It's a large healthcare group looking after almost entire Hong Kong population. So you can imagine it's all 43 hospitals in one, right? And we develop our core systems, including build our own AI. So no surprise to see the survey, right? So I want to make 4 points. Is that the first one is that to me, by the way, I just returned from the Gartner Symposium in November, particularly because I'm also a member of the Global CIO Board. So we have a 2 days discussion on the AI with lots of CIOs from Europe and the Middle East, right? So compared to Europe and the Middle East, I think only US and China are deregulating AI. So they spearhead, much faster than other regions, right? So the first thing I want to say is that responsible AI is a tool to enhance the regulation of AI, right? If you want to go faster, you want to find a tool to protect yourself, to protect others, right? The second point is that responsible AI it's also will be strengthened. The governance of the responsible AI will be strengthened along with the maturity of AI, right? The early stage of maturity is the automation. The later, agentic AI will be the autonomous, right? So think about the Tesla. Think about the other autonomous cars. When they go to level 3, level 4, right? They have to do more work on the responsible AI, right? The third thing is that healthcare is heavily regulated, right? So, but however, you will find that not just in Hong Kong, hospitals adopted much more AI solutions. So, recent figures show that more than 30 AI solutions, has been adopted in most of the first-tier Chinese hospitals, right? From radiology, natural language, autonomous, automatic diagnosis, rehab, education, blah, 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 all those things, so people will be very surprised, why healthcare adopt AI so quickly, right? Is that because they are not responsible? Actually, to me, it's not the regulation. The regulation cannot stop AI. It's the complexity of the business, the workflow, attract AI in hospital much faster than other traditional industry, right? The final point I want to make is that, compared to other places, right? China is particularly strong in application of AI. I think the key reason is the data coming from many scenarios, right? It's also integrate into the hardware from autonomous cars. US has only one Tesla. China has more than 30 Teslas, different brand, right? And also even from the drone, right? Not just DJI, but all others. Even the toothbrush. I bought a toothbrush, AI toothbrush. Surprisingly, it costs only how much US dollars? $20 US, but it has so much AI features, right? So I would say, it also has to comply with the responsible AI for my toothbrush. Yeah, that's all from me.
Interesting. It's really fascinating. When I hear you, Kevin, you said looking at the regulation landscape, right, in the whole world. Yes, US, China are probably much sort of given more space, put it that way. But if you go to Europe, right, they are tightening up all the regulations. Actually, I might come back to you, okay? Maybe starting from you later, very quickly. how you are really looking at this, and also Thomas, if you supply your product globally, especially AI-based products, the regulations like in Europe much tighter. How you look into this? You're gonna delay your entry to certain markets, and how you gonna do that? Or if you're trying to build some technology from a different sector, how you take a look into all this regulatory framework. But before we do that, Nana, any comments you may have, after hearing the industry expert about your survey results?
I very much agree with what the panelists have said. I think you all have amazing perspectives. I'd also really like to understand what an AI-powered toothbrush does personally. I think I have a separate question on that. Going back to the survey results, the way I actually read that 28% is that 28% feel like they have very mature practices. And so it's already an embedded strategic priority, not that they're just getting started. Anecdotally, I would say I work with organizations of all different stripes who have different maturity and different interests in this, but I think what Howard said is very much on the nose from what I experienced, which is that there's a dual pressure to both try and experiment and see what the possibility is with AI while you're also trying to build a governance program. And it is challenging to do both of those things at the same time. It's also very challenging to build a governance program before you've designed any type of approach around AI because you don't know what you're trying to govern. And that can make it more challenging to define practices that are actually very tangible and aligned to the business objective. So I think the dialogue here is really that this is a really fast-moving space. The technology is moving very quickly. Companies and their appreciation of what the technology can do for them is moving very, very quickly. And the governance practices are, by necessity, going to have to continue to evolve to support that. So I think anybody who tells you they have a complete, fully baked responsible AI program and they've solved all of those issues, I think they have misled themselves, because this is a space that requires a lot more agility and evolution from a program perspective, because the technology is continuing to change and our perspective of risk will continue to evolve.
Yeah, great. So now maybe I'll go to Thomas first, actually. Do you really consider the AI, the different sort of AI regulations in different jurisdictions when you build your architecture these days, when looking at what kind of technology you're going to use or when you supply the product? Are you really looking to that? Or you say, hey, I automatically go to China or US, okay, the ones that are most free, How do you consider that?
Well, as a global company, we absolutely care about the laws and regulations that impact both our customers and the markets that we are in. And so we look at those countries and look at the laws and regulations. And I think there's a discussion about the EU AI Act. So as different legislations are drafted and up for comment in some countries in the US as well, we look at that. We partner with our legal team and outside counsel to look at that, consider which markets we are already in, which markets we want to expand into with those regulations in mind. Because at the end of the day, we want to always, as a company that's global, be compliant with local laws and regulations and that are country specific. One thing to mention in that in our governance, risk, and compliance framework, we have a set of controls that we harmonize and align with all these regulations and standards. It's not just regulations, but industry-specific standards. So, for example, here in the U.S., we have a set of standards that are promulgated by a U.S. department, and it's called NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technologies. And there are NIST standards that cover encryption or secrets or risk assessment. There's a very well-known one in the U.S. called NIST Standard 53, Rev 5. And so we align our security program and our governance program with that particular set of standards. We also align our security program with an international standard called ISO 27001, which is the Code of Practice for Information Management. And what's really interesting that is getting more and more adoption globally is a global standard that's promulgated by ISO called ISO 22001. And this is a standard for information technology and having an AI management system. And it's very much aligned with what Alana's talking about from PwC, having the right governance in place, starting with policies and leadership and doing a risk assessment. And so I think for companies like Laserfish, as long as you have a set of control frameworks that are aligned with some of these leading standards, and you look to current legislation and pending legislation and make decisions from that context and do a risk assessment, I think you'll be well positioned to do business.
Actually, very encouraging to hear what you just said, right? The global standard when it comes to the AI is really emerging. I think lots of, for our lawyers, for lots of people in the industry, I think one of the biggest concerns is that we're going to be in this divided standards. It will be horrible to have two sets of standards, right? So we're causing lots of trouble. But you and I know that in today's reality, there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of challenge in that way. Can we really build the truly global standards? People really think, lots of people think differently. So it will be, let's see how this is going to be really evolving when it comes to this AI. So maybe Kevin, do you want to comment on this? You are in charge of the CIO, the technology system for all those hospitals. Do you really care about are you really following or monitoring the differences in AI regulations, different countries, different markets?
My observation is that the region with a strong mission, they normally are quite open to the AI. While the region with a lot of peace, like Europe, they are more focused on the compliance and regulation. So US and China, they are very missionary. So they want to quickly adopt AI to solve problems. That's why they deregulate AI a lot, right? So that's my observation. I think think about 5G or 6G in the telecom industry, right? There's only one standard. Of course, back to the 3G time, Europe used the GSM, right? And then US using the CDMA, and China has also using both, right? I think it's better, and it will be. US and China will use the same AI standard. They will, yeah.
So maybe Kim, I'll probably ask you more about this, right? I assume that you choose technologies, right? When there's the technology coming from different sources, that might be something you probably need to concern. Right now, we're talking about, at least in China, also in the US, we're talking about, hey, are we going to rely on our own technology, or should we worry about, hey, if the technology from the other side of the world, when something happened in the future, geopolitical things, the confrontations, are we going to really have sustainable sort of supply of technologies? That's probably something I assume that's really your priority.
Correct. I would say that almost 40 years ago, right, when I was in Melbourne in university, and my first home computer was a XT, right? XT compatible, not even genuine IBM computer, right? So I have to say that, for the entire IT industry, right, 99% are really from the US, right? Honestly. And it's really a pity, right? But to me, I'm quite optimistic. I think that it's only temporary, right? People talk about the decouple of the technology, right? But to me, I think this, the ultimate, it will become a G2 in the future, right? One is more focused on the innovation. The other is more focused on the manufacture, right? They have a strength of both, right? You think about the AI, 40% of the AI, workers are Chinese, are really Chinese, right? So probably it's because of the mathematics, right? Or others. I don't know. I think Howard probably can tell more from you. So say for my current work, right, we adopt dual vendor strategy, right? Because to me, we want to get the best of both. So it's a pity, best of both. For example, we have lots of US technology, but of course we also worry about the sanction, right? When they cannot be used. But honestly, our primary are still US technology, right? And also but for Chinese technology, we have two levels. One is as alternative. Secondly is as a contingency, right? Secondly, as a contingency. personally, I just wish, this struggle will end very soon and that we can enjoy the best of both.
Right. Wow. I can hear the word resiliency. you have all this design preparation. So Howard, what about your situation? Do you also have a dual vendor? Do you have?
Well, I mean, the thought that was going through my mind is when DeepSeek first came out, right? And we had people who wanted to see what DeepSeek could do, right? And if DeepSeek happened to be the best use case for some business outcome that was mission critical, I think we would have to have some discussion about it to see what the risk might be with us using it, and if that was something that organizationally would be something with which we want to proceed. But by the same token, if it was the right solution, then why wouldn't we use it? And I think that's the point in this discussion, or at least what Kevin said. If we want to use the best AI technology to solve the problem, regardless of whether it's US, Chinese, German, Indonesian, wherever it is, right? And I think, as we've discussed so far, that's what this technology discussion should be about, right? So the more we can get everything else out of the way to say this is the best AI for the business problem we're trying to solve, the better we're going to be.
And just to add to what Howard's saying, there are specific constraints on the usage of some of these AI models. So if you read the terms of service for OpenAI versus Anthropic versus Google Gemini versus DeepSeek or Alibaba, each one has their unique terms of use and specific requirements on any constraints. And so some AI models you can't use in certain countries, and so you have to you do have to comply with that and make sure that you're not using OpenAI in certain countries and use Alibaba in certain countries. So having a multi-AI model strategy, I think, is important to help enable a business that has business across borders in different countries and different geolocation.
Right. Yeah. Howard, actually, just coming back to you a bit. Okay. So, of course, it's very encouraging that you're very open, okay, you have the methodology. But in reality, do you think that's really possible for the, like a major US universities gonna use it like a DeepSeek, something really like a China-based AI system? Seriously?
A little bit. I mean, I can't say with 100% certainty that every university would consider it. But I do know that some are trying it. I think I tend to be on the forefront of what I'm doing in my industry. I'm not at the head of the pack. I'm near the top of the curve, and I'm looking for the best solution for my business. So if DeepSeek is actually that best solution, and I can get my legal and my risk people to say, you're within the bounds of what we wanted to do as a university, then there would be no reason not to. I mean, I think the answer to your question is likely not, but I also wouldn't say it's impossible. That would be my honest answer to that question.
Great. Thank you, Howard. So Nana, what's your advice these days to your like US clients? That be ready, or to have a two set of technologies if they have enough resources. How can they prepare for like a worst case scenario if the technology they're using come from like both China and the US?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of things organizations need to do in order to be prepared for the very dynamic environment. So the first piece is they have to have a clearly defined set of risk criteria, controls for how they evaluate any type of technology that comes into their organization. So that's not even a question. Is this an approved set of technology we can use just based on our requirements? And you're not thinking about broader discussion. It's really just per our guidelines, can we access this type of technology? Related to that is that we actually have visibility into it, because there's a risk for a lot of organizations right now of a really rapid proliferation of shadow AI because of how easy it is to get your hands on various technology, and well-intentioned individuals might not be fully aware of the risk management and intake processes. So there's a bit of that kind of couching that has to happen. But I think above and beyond that, once you have an approved set of technology, the other thing that organizations need to contend with is the fact that things change very quickly in this space. New models come out all the time. New vendors come out with new capabilities all the time. Your existing software providers roll out new functionality. So we have an agility that's required in the management of this technology that I don't think we've needed to have at this quite of a pace ever before. I'm going to make that statement. And that necessitates more resources, upskilled team members. You have to think about making technology investments on the scale of several months, not several years. And most organizations aren't designed for that type of churn. So that's something that I think organizations have to think about, is how do we evolve our practices so that we can take advantage of new capabilities rather than sinking a ton of money into something that we then have to have for 5 years before we're allowed to roll it over into something else, which is just not tenable in this climate. So that's a new pressure point for software and IT infrastructure management within organizations. But also this is because it's moving so quickly, we have to think about the broader software ecosystem and hardware ecosystem that we have in place, and whether or not it's fit for purpose for the type of things that we're trying to do. So there are a lot of open questions for CIOs and for functions. How do you manage these technology investments? Where do you put your resources? Where do you focus your attention? There's a lot of unproven bets in this space, so we're still learning, and you can't expect to have value out of everything. So where are we willing to take risk? Where are we willing to trial? How are we going to trial? Where are we going to be sinking our big bets, basically? And that answer might change more regularly than we'd like.
Wow. Well, I sort of really get a sense of your CIO's world. There's a lot of big decision, lots of, you gotta be both really entrepreneur, gotta be really, really responsible, right? You're in charge of something, something so critical to your organization. You gotta take some risk, gotta be open, and also responsive, even conservative, everything coming together. So, wow. So, Thomas, would you like to give some, even advice to our audience? Lots of them are the CIOs, right? Dealing with, gotta make those major decisions. And you're really unique. You operate both in the US and then China. So how do you really adapt to all of this, the different environments? How you can really balance the efficiency, the risk control, anything specific you want to offer to our audience?
Yeah, when I look at use cases for AI adoption, I kind of wear two hats, right? At Laserfish, I'm the CIO, so I'm responsible for how IT enables the business and supports the business and gives our employees great experiences, give our customers great experiences, but I also partner with a very innovative CTO that runs software development for the company. And we look at both time to value and time to market in terms of our decisions around technology, with looking at risks and what capabilities we can give our customers. So that's really important to us in terms of making our decisions. So internally for the company, and I think Howard and other CIOs would agree with me, we look at how can we leverage AI and look at different use cases to drive productivity gains. I think there is a very valid expectation that AI is going to help really scale the business and drive productivity improvements. I think our HR partners are looking for that out of IT. Secondly is, how do we leverage AI and looking at different use cases and things that we want to experiment with and drive results with to really differentiate our business and give our business increased capability to enter new markets, to come up with new products, in Kevin's business, come up with new services. And then third is, how can we leverage AI to really disrupt our business, to totally shift how we're looking at things and providing products and services. So I think those are the lens in which we as IT leaders need to look at AI and, again, weigh that with risk, look at cost, and evaluate that time to market and time to value.
I keep hearing the word risk. So Kevin, for the healthcare industry, when you are making these major decisions, is the risk you're really on your top of the list, or how much consideration you're giving the risk part when you design, when you're making the decisions?
I just mentioned that it is the demand, the problem-solving demand drives the AI in the healthcare industry rather than risk, right? Which present stop. To us, right? Because healthcare is a labor-intensive, capital-intensive, and technology-intensive industry, right? We, almost every region, every country, spend more money on healthcare, not defense, right? Instead of defense. So healthcare is a huge industry, right? I think, to us, we put, there are two models. One model is that you find an AI solution, you try to find the problem, right? That's most of the vendor do, right? Startup do. But for us, we have the problem. We have every day, we have three dozens of problems. And then we try to find solutions. We try and error, right? So that's why we have AI lab and innovation lab. The purpose is to doing the matching, demand and the supply, right? So, on this perspective, we normally, starting from problem and then identify some potential solutions and then we assess the risk, right? So instead of doing the risk first and then doing the others, right? The other thing I want to supplement is that Hong Kong is, part of the China, right? So we are influenced by the Chinese AI approach. I think the difference, I just now mentioned about the European and the difference between European and US China. Now I want to make a little bit difference between US AI and the Chinese AI. The Chinese AI, they always follow the word is called democratize AI. You think about if you go to TikTok, a lot of people watch TikTok is not because of the fancy shoes. It's because a lot of innovative gadgets you can buy in your bedroom, in your washroom, in your kitchen, right? Many small tiny things, right? And also in China, the DeepSeek, most famous is DeepSeek box. You can buy the full blood DeepSeek version from a box, a server. You can install in your premises, right? So a lot of the Middle East CIOs in Ghana Symposium, they mentioned they all bought the DeepSeek box so that they can play around safely on their own cost, very safe, right? They also mentioned about the BYD. In Middle East, they use a BYD app to buy, you can download the app. They have so many AI features, right? It's almost automatic robots, software robots can introduce so many smart things, right? So what I'm saying is the China's AI's approach is democratize so that everywhere adopt AI, right? So that's what I'm saying is that we, compared to other top tier Chinese hospital, we are not really leading, right? Because some others, they use AI so much, you won't believe, from even to the toilet, there are more than 5 AI solutions.
Yeah, some of our clients already come to us, we're IP lawyers, right? They're already coming to us with all those ideas, especially AI related hardware. They actually really want to patenting everything related to that particular product field. This is, we can see the kind of enthusiasm in developing this AI related the applications. So, So Howard, coming to you, are you seeing the way the universities run, right? The way the institutions are run, are managed? How are they really, as a CIO, right? Are you seeing the new ways using technology like AI to really even change the way the organization are managed these days, or increasing the resiliency? So what are things that you can see people are trying, you are doing? What are the things happening right now?
I think everybody's trying it. I think everybody's doing it to a different degree. I think where we've tried to be differentiating in our business is getting the faculty to embrace it, to be AI forward. We've actually have several classes where all of the material is based just on the AI. So for our MBA students, they all do a capstone project, and the entire syllabus of the course is based on the AI and agentic AI. There's steps for them, every part of that course, to be engaged with AI for them to finish that final product and final project. We have 2 other courses that have started to use what used to be in the classroom role play scenarios, where students would get up in front of the room and act out a scenario, and maybe a handful of students would get to do that. We've now built an agent so that every student gets to interact with that agent. And when they're done with that simulation, they get that coaching feedback instantaneously. It's made a big difference. The students love that. From a productivity perspective, we've created an agent that can grade essays. And there's a couple of pieces to that. There's a financial ROI because course assistants are very expensive. And if you look at the mean time to return a paper, if you've got to grade papers for 60 students, it could take you a couple of weeks. And by the time you get to paper number 60, you may be exhausted. You may not give it the same level of rigor as paper number 1. So somewhere in that cycle and in that process, right, the AI can come through with a qualitative feedback that's maybe more robust than the human can. It can come back with a quantitative feedback to score that paper, yet not take the human out of the loop. So we're seeing all of these things that we're experimenting with. I mean, Ilana said it, we don't get it in the door if it seems to be too risky for the university's appetite. But once we get it in the door, to Thomas's point, we're trying to find use cases where we can fail fast. And the risk is sort of behind us because it's been an approved product. So when you add that all together, you get to the place where we're actually seeing a lot of the biggest gains we've done so far in the classroom. I think STEM productivity is lagging a little bit behind, to be fair.
Right.
If I can add to that, UCLA is a great example, and Howard gave some good ones. I'm on the board of directors for Cal State Long Beach Foundation, and we've got over 40,000 students enrolled, and in the college of engineering there's almost 6,000 students. And the CSU Long Beach College of Engineering is really known for Space Beach. I think the U.S. News and World Report ranked us as number 3 in the country for aerospace for the programs there. But in the senior project for the entire College of Engineering, you will see now in the senior projects, AI being a component that's highlighted and spotlighted. And Howard and myself and others have been privileged to come in and help judge with the senior projects on behalf of another organization. But it's amazing how these universities have really turned and adopted AI as part of its core curriculum, so that way the graduates of these programs are really AI ready to have a very vital role in the industry.
That's the narrative, right? As universities, we're training students to go out and work in industry where it's expected that they're going to know how to use AI, and not just use it, but in many cases use it strategically to make better decisions for their businesses.
You remind me that what we're doing right now these days in the law firm. Some of our lawyers are really using, I think, the tool to write some codes, okay, to make it much simpler to process a really mundane task. Only 1 or 2 lawyers were doing this. Most of the others didn't know. And until one day, we actually have a lawyer talking to all of us, show how this could be done. And now the reason I heard that more of our lawyers are trying to starting that, using the AI to write in some small program, help our work. That's actually a fascinating thing for us, for someone to manage a law firm to see. We never seen that before, because most lawyers were not programmers before. But now, our lawyers can even do this. That's something really amazing.
Well, I think that's one of the big takeaways, the key takeaways for your audience here, is a lot of the learning with AI really comes peer-to-peer, right? We can make any AI tool available to anybody in our organization, and we can't necessarily make them use it. But if you show someone how to use it, they're more likely to see how that applies to them and their job, and then they're more likely to go tell somebody, hey, did you see this? I did this, go do that. And we're finding that peer-to-peer is so powerful.
Right. Have you seen any surprises, like resistance, or something you still cannot make any difference? Someone still, refuse to use it, or some part of management, anything?
I think there's still an issue there. In university, it's hard because we have tenured faculty, and it's hard to hold them accountable for anything. And if they don't want to use the AI, they don't have to use the AI. And I think some people just haven't figured out how to approach it to make sense for them in what they do day to day. And again, until that light bulb goes on for them, or until they can actually figure out in their minds where the efficiencies may be for them, they're just not understanding how to best utilize it. And we don't force it on them. We're calling it, we've created a digital divide. We didn't really do it intentionally, but we understand that, and we accept that, and we're hoping that those that want to take advantage of the tools that we're offering them are going to take it and run with it. And then we're hoping sort of that word of mouth, and then just, again, as I said, peers educating peers, that the rest will come along for that ride.
Right. Thank you. Maybe, Lana, maybe come to you, okay? You do not have to limit your, your remarks to AI alone. Of course, AI is probably the biggest thing. And when you are giving advice to your client these days, what are maybe the other things, other technologies the CIOs are looking to, they're working on to improve the corporate management or resiliency, or dealing with some of the high-stake issues of corporations? Any other like hot trends you are seeing for CIOs?
I can offer my perspective. I'd love to hear, Thomas and Howard, the things that you guys find interesting. AI, of course, is very interesting, not just as a function in terms of how you manage it, but how do you use AI within the CIO function most effectively? And that's everything from on the security side, from better visibility and monitoring around potential threat vectors and management of that, to code development. So it's a really wide range of capabilities. And when I say AI, a lot of things, some things that fall into that umbrella are more like true automations than actual AI, but they're because of the ecosystem around data collection and better management of that data, we can oftentimes get more value out of automations. Outside of that, I think there's still growing interest and discussion around both the potential of quantum computing going forward. So I think that's more of a further off type of an interest, but that's something that I've been seeing a lot of dialogue around. And then blockchain type of applications as well, any type of capabilities that that can offer from a registry perspective, and better hashing and visibility around the tracking of information. So there's a wide range of technologies that I think are always going to be of interest. Otherwise, I'd love to hear, Thomas, Howard, how you guys, and Kevin, how you guys are seeing those topics evolve at your desk.
Yeah, Thomas, would you like to add? What are the other things that are really on the top of your mind?
Well, I think as far as AI adoption, you had asked that question. We're very excited about it because there's a lot of different processes that can be improved or optimized through use of AI. I mean, simple things like the meetings we're having now, and meeting summarization is table stakes, but just being able to capture action items, prompt for next steps, things like that, and be able to move forward on projects and initiatives is really interesting. We've adopted some tools to help out with program project management. In terms of our major corporate initiatives, in the old days, you would have your service provider consultants help you create a set of requirements for a new initiative. Say you're implementing a new order to cash initiative, and you would have a requirements traceability matrix. Well, the time it took to develop test cases, that validate the design and use those test cases for UAT took a lot of effort. Now, you can take your RTM, you can feed it into an AI tool, and it can spit out a bunch of test cases pretty quickly, right? And you can automate some of the testing as well using AI-enabled tools. Lana mentioned software development. We use AI to, in a responsible way, to create software to test our product, right? And so that's very helpful. And so I think the productivity improvements we've seen in terms of AI organization have been really, really significant.
Great. Yeah. Now, your CIOs have a very exciting job these days. It's a time, the unprecedented time for you to really to show to the corporations, hey, we're producing lots of values. Okay, right?
One thing I forgot to mention is marketing. Marketing is really ripe for AI disruption. If you think of the traditional way of doing things in terms of content creation, social media, you don't need to hire 5 people to manage your social media campaigns when you can have AI generate a lot of content that then can be monetized or curated and presented on different platforms. So I think that's more table stakes these days, but it's amazing how much you can automate. Image editing, for example, right? And the ability, like, I can take my Android device and take out, actually, Kevin, you'd appreciate this. I go to a symposium, I did some book sightings, and noticed there were some individuals in the background that are part of the photo with me and the author and the keynote speaker. With one click on my Samsung device, I could actually eliminate that particular individual, so it's just me and the author of the book. It is that simple with a click of a button. Whereas in the past, I'd have to load into Photoshop, add additional filters and tools, look at layers. It would probably take me a good 15 minutes. Now it takes less than a minute. It's pretty amazing.
Amazing.
Apple can do that too now, Thomas. So just saying, we'll give everybody an equal shout out here.
Absolutely.
I know lots of CEOs, right, in general counsel becoming CEOs. I feel like in today's world, all of you should become CEOs. Right? When you have such a powerful technology with all your business insights, you care about the people, you want people to use it. You are, even Thomas, you said, even doing marketing, you're doing the CEO's job. That's great.
One thing that I think is interesting about this moment too is that because there's so much visibility around AI and everything that you need for AI to be successful, I think other elements that have been part of the CIO agenda for a long time, but maybe have not seen as much of the spotlight historically, are getting that visibility because they're viewed as dependencies for getting value out of these major investments. So things like data transformations, data lakes, those types of maybe less flashy, but very necessary plumbing components that are important to getting scale and finding the right types of use cases for AI. I'm seeing those become more and more dominant parts of the agenda.
Right. Innovation. New CIOs are really also innovators. Like Kevin, that's the one word I really got from your earlier remarks. Innovate. I also want to add or want to share about what are the other exciting things you are doing as a CIO.
Yeah, sure. I think the ultimate purpose of AI is to improve the organization capability, right? On top of the automation, autonomous, right? So healthcare, as I mentioned, it's a big industry, right? Lots of knowledge, lots of regulation. So we are building on top of the large language model, we are building the disease model, right? Clinical model, right? Rehab model, right? All these kind of models. So this will become the core competence of a healthcare provider organization, right? And ultimately, we wish to use AI to change two models. One is we call service model to external, and operating model, which is internal, right? So I read a book from Professor Eric Topol, right? I think he's very famous in the US. He wrote about the future digital healthcare. That's before AI, right? He mentioned about traditional general hospital. You see so many general clinic specialists, radiology, all in one, right? Occupy a big land, right? But that's because 100 years ago, there's no IT, no information. People have to sit next to each other, right? But in the future healthcare model, right? Probably the radiology clinic will be, sit next to the subway station, or in your neighborhood, right? You don't have to go to a big general hospital, jumping between different wards and then find a solution, right? So that will be a big healthcare model change. And then your home bed will become hospital bed. One is linked by IoT, by smart device, by everything, right? So that's one thing. What we are doing in the hospital, because today most of the hospitals in Hong Kong already become smart hospital, and also we get all our hospital in Hong Kong. We have the we call HINC 7. That's the US standard for the hospital IT. We got HINC 7, the top accreditation, right? Which means it's the top the range recognition. Next step, the smart hospital should go to AI hospital, right? Starting from co-pilot, from assistant, gradually become autonomous, right? I mean, of course, still need human to sign, right? Just like in the airline industry, I was an airline CIO for many years, and in 30 years ago, we had all the aircraft manufactured after 1990s have autopilot, right? That's 30 years ago, already have autopilot, right? But it doesn't stop, during the landing. The captain still, manually to fly the landing, right? So I would say that, following other industry, the healthcare will become a lot of autonomous and also in the future. Yeah.
What about the data? This is a question I'm probably going to offer to all of you, ask all of you. To make this AI work, especially at the next level, right? The data within your organization, the kind of know-how within your organization, whether it's the professors, doctors, like for us, the lawyers, we're actually working on we just pitched one like a community AI legal service project with local Shenzhen governments. We realize, right, it's so critical to get our data, get our know-how in the system. So what do you do actually for your CIOs? What do you do to make sure the people in your organization eventually can contribute with all the know-how with the data? Kevin, anything you want to share?
Yeah, we are very lucky. I think the data will seriously impact the IT vendor supply chain system. For example, majority of the Chinese hospitals, they use vendors solution, right? But in Hong Kong, entire Hong Kong, we built our own system in the past 30 years. So one system, one database for the entire population, right? So we have ample supply of very high quality data. That's why our AI lab really fly. We also, on top of this, we build a lot of data products. So far, we have supported 8 top universities conducting more than 70 cross-year researches, right, in the past few years. So again, top quality data will generate top quality AI. So what does that mean? I think this will help to consolidate a lot of hospitals in China, to group into one. In Hong Kong, we have 43 hospitals using one system. In Shenzhen, for example, all 126 hospitals in Shenzhen, in the future, probably they will form alliance, right, to contribute, just like a banking deposit. If you don't deposit, you can't withdraw, right? So they are going to share the data to form an AI alliance based on data, right? So this will happen soon.
Wow. Howard, anything you want to share? What you are doing with your magic data within universities?
Yeah, I mean, data is the king. There is no doubt about that. And we've been successful so far because we've been very selective about the data that we've used in the models and the agents that we've rolled out to date. We've not tried to boil the ocean. We've taken agents where we know we have that good data, as Kevin said, and that's enabled us to be successful with those agents that we've built, right? And it was funny because we were working really on being a better data-driven decision-making organization before AI. And we sort of maybe took our eye a little bit off that ball as we started to figure out how AI was going to be impactful. But it's part of what we need to be working on as CIOs, right? The question you asked, the role has changed to be one that's a lot more strategic and innovative than operational, and I've welcomed that as part of it. And it's really the data that feeds the AI that's really what we're most focused on. And if not that, then it's really cybersecurity, because there's always threats to everything that we've talked about with the data and the AI. So it's really those three things in combination that have my focus.
Right. Wow. Thank you. Thomas, anything to offer here?
Yeah, when you think about it, I think most leading analyst firms will tell you that 80 to 90% of the world's data is unstructured. Only about 10-20% is structured. So think about your wealth of data sitting in all your content repositories, whether it's SharePoint or Box or Laserfish. Laserfish is a content management system. And so being able to mine and harness that data to do the things that Kevin's talking about is huge. And so that's where I think AI has a role. With Laserfish, we have Laserfish AI. Our goal is to allow our 9,500 B2B customers to harness that data sitting in their repositories to make decisions, to find that new medicine, to find that new innovation by just leveraging that data, interrogating it, looking for patterns, and coming up with new insights. And that's really what we're focused on from a company perspective.
Thank you, Thomas. Nana, what's your advice today to your clients, managing their data, harnessing the data, how they're gonna making sure the data to be structured? What's your magic advice for them?
Oh, no magic here.
Hard labor.
It's hard work, it's to tackle everything that everyone else has said. I mean, you have to know what data you have. You have to make sure it's annotated properly, inventoried appropriately. You have to make sure you know what the permissions around that data are. It's provisioned appropriately. I mean, you can't have people accidentally accessing HR information if they're not supposed to have access to it. You can't have a document querying and surfacing up the wrong version of a policy, something that was published 6 years ago versus 6 months ago. So, but that type of indexing requires work, and that's the less flashy stuff. Now there are ways that AI can help with some of those capabilities, and we're seeing that be deployed, of course, but you have to have a good set of information to work with. You have to have a good way of accessing it, and you have to have a good grasp of those types of controls in order to get valuable insights out of these systems. So the piping, the plumbing is really, really critical for seeing effective systems.
Yeah, that's why I said your CIOs are going to play the CEO's job. You have to make sure the best people within the organization, right, are going to be focused on doing this hard work, having the data out, right, Thomas?
Yeah, and Alana makes a really good point, because access rights is something that's very, very important that we care about at Laserfish. So we actually restrict what users can access based upon what they have rights to, what they have entitlements to, based upon their role, based upon a document classification, for example, and tagging and metadata management. So these are all aspects to look at when you look at your unstructured data, to make sure that as you allow your general users to access your wealth of content, that they're accessing what they are entitled to access. And to Alana's point, they're not accessing highly confidential, business sensitive data around an M&A or around customer acquisition or around personal data or other regulated data. It's really important to look at that holistically as you leverage and different tools to create the data and implement solutions like RAG or other technologies as well.
Thank you. So actually we're towards the end of this program, right? Almost 60 minutes. But before we end it, I do want to come back to today's the context of the program. We talk a lot about AI, but the context is really the cross-border implication for your CIO's job these days. I think in the very beginning we talk about how we're gonna looking into this regulatory landscape. But perhaps I was a bit too excited about what you said. It looks like, hey, all this cross-border issues, complications do not impact your work too much, okay, because everybody's excited about the application. But at the end, I do want to invite each of you to just offer some of your, insights. As a CIOs, right, should we move just focusing on the opportunities, right? The innovation and everything, using my appropriate way to say it. You have this even like a something similar to a CEO's job, or should we worry too much about this the geopolitical uncertainties? What's your advice for your CIO friends, the peers in the industry? Anything you want to offer? I do want to come back to the theme, right? The cross-border part. Howard?
I'll say for me, I collaborate with CIOs from the top 25 business schools globally. So we have folks who are on the group that we meet with that are from the UK, that are from Singapore and France, right? So we've got global representation, and we talk openly about AI as a technology that we're using to solve the problems for our business, not because we're looking for a competitive advantage, but we're truly trying to be collegial and collaborative, because we're all ultimately trying to solve for the same problem for our students, right? So for me, I don't see any barrier in that regard. We're trying to enable a technology to come up with a better business outcome. And if we can find a better way to use the technology that somebody's doing from which we can benefit, there's no reason to not share.
Right. Thank you. Wow. Kevin?
I would like to say that in terms of the consumable product, China is changing from supply market to demand. But in terms of AI, China is changing from demand to supply, right? So which means I think US and China has a lot of rooms to work together on the AI.
Collaboration. Nana?
I'm also very optimistic for future collaboration, and I think there's a tremendous amount of talent within both territories, and I think that can only, if we can find ways to collaborate, I feel like that will only yield positive outcomes. From a CIO perspective, I think CIOs they need to maintain visibility around what technology is coming into the organization, and then have plans A through F probably defined, because policies might change, and they need to understand what those changes in policies might mean for the technology choices that they're making. But I don't think that's the talent and the innovation ecosystem within both spaces, I think, will continue to move, and so I'm still extremely optimistic.
Great. Thomas, I want you to give the final conclusion.
Sure. No, I'm excited by the innovations coming out of China and the US and countries worldwide. I think it's amazing what's happening in universities, what's happening in businesses. And so I think we can all find a way to collaborate and work together to make it a win-win. As a company, we recognize that we've got customers in different industries that are highly regulated, that serve specific markets, and so we are flexible in terms of supporting those customers in those countries. For example, in Asia Pac, we have customers that want to focus on AI models from Alibaba, for example, or we have US-centric customers that really want to focus on data residency and their data saving within the US. And so we have not only an org structure, we have processes, we have systems and tools and technologies to enable those customers to be successful regardless of which country they reside in and where they want their data resident in.
Brilliant. So just so all of you know that my insight from today's discussion is that I think the CIO is the best job in the world right now. Do you agree or not? Thomas, do you agree? This is really the best job. Thomas?
I think a CIO is a strategic business enabler. We have access to enterprise-wide data and unique data for AI, so it is absolutely the best job.
Yeah, Howard, agree?
I love what I do.
Best job.
I love what I do.
Yes, there's no other better time to be a CIO, right? So, Kevin?
Yeah, CIO stands for career is over, or Chief Innovation Officer, right? both.
All of the above.
Wonderful. Now, really thank each of you for joining today's program with TMT Post, and hopefully today's program will be valuable to our audience. Again, thank each of you for taking your time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
The year 2025 presents two faces.
摩擦在升级，贸易与技术的墙越筑越高。
Globale Lieferketten erleben eine komplette Neuordnung.
Nous devenons des îles. Tout devient local.
But wait.
Look at the butterfly effect caused by AI.
AI breakthroughs know no borders, triggering a global storm.
大模型在迭代，应用在落地，
速度快得惊人。
Chips, data, talent, creating a node in efficient map.
We are all balancing long-term strategy with short-term survival.
Only intensive conversations can capture the frontier voices.
We need to
rebuild a true global vision.
我哋需要跨越邊界嘅多擁洞策略。
우리는 이 복잡한 미래에 적응해야 합니다.
Global open conversation is no longer an option. It is a strategic necessity now.
So, welcome to the T-Edge 2025.
12月8日至